there's something about YouTube, and dare I say it, it's like the new TV, which is not necessarily good because TV died, like a decade ago. But I think for the next decade, that's what it will be. And that's so important because when I first started this, Adam, people looked at YouTube the way people used to look at blogs.
Welcome to Future Driven. I'm Adam Kopp, and on this podcast, I talk with entrepreneurs and industry professionals about the challenges and the wins in their business. See the vision, drive the future. Welcome to episode 4 of the Future Driven podcast. I'm really excited to have a good friend and the very first Madak agency client, Benji Travis. That was what I wanted to kind of mention and hold out for you, Benji. Welcome, and thank you for coming on the show.
Well, honored to be here. And I'm glad I was not only the first, but the first of many clients. So congratulations to you. And so happy to be on the show and share what I know.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it. So to give everybody a little bit of context, so, a little over 4 years ago when I started Madak, Benji and I met through a different kind of project, and he was doing and still does, I assume, December every single year. And so what I was going to tell you, Benji, is the very first picture that I have of this office where it's just like one table, and in the background, I just found the picture, is a stack of December boxes, with the logo on the box and everything. So give us a quick, what's going on with December before we kind of dig into you. What's happening there?
For sure. Yeah. So, of course, I'm a YouTuber. I've been on the platform for over a decade now. And in the midst of that time, giving back was really important. So we wanted to start something, and we started fundraising money. We were dancing for donations before there was a name for it, raised about $3,000 in that first year. And that just kind of started some momentum for years afterwards to create this 24-hour live broadcast year after year, and we named it December. So at the height, which you were part of those years, we raised over $500,000 for charity, which is amazing. A total of about $2 million given to different organizations over the course of the decade. I think we're in our 9th year, maybe 10th, like I forget, I lose track. And so, of course, 2020 being what it is, it's going to be a little bit different, a lot more intimate as the years have gone by. Judy and I, we started as kids, but now we have 4 kids, right? So things are evolving, and it's going to be a lot more intimate this year. We're going to do something, but it's going to be much different than what from the past. But it's been a great event. And like I mentioned, it revolves around a broadcast. So we're live and engaging with our audience, and we're asking them to donate to charities that we believe in.
Yeah, well, I remember being brought in with the project, and like you said, at the very beginning, I felt like I was in like the mega part of it. You guys are doing tours, going to stadiums. I mean, you had it was a month-long event. And so I can totally understand why you scaled back, and you probably have found that you got a lot more connectivity and you got the same power in the new kind of way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The power of this digital world is the fact that we're all connected by the internet, and social media makes it, realistic for us to do what we used to do in person online. And I think this year more than ever, that's being proven. But also, the evolution just comes with the philosophy that we follow our passion, and we have to change as we change. And, one of the things that was unique about December is we hit that event at a time where people weren't raising money for charities as much, right? And now some of the functions that were exclusive for us as YouTubers on that platform are not exclusive. So people are able to raise money, which is great. It just means people have a lot more options. I feel when you were part of it, there just wasn't a lot of people thinking about, supporting charities in this way. And we hit at a time where we had exclusive attention on the platform. In fact, I'm not kidding you. The year we raised money, we were up there probably top 5 fundraisers on YouTube. So that's pretty
Incredible.
Crazy considering how big YouTube really is.
Yeah, no, you guys have an incredible reach. And so what we're talking about here in the first couple of minutes is just your philanthropic, part of you. There's so much that goes into Benji Travis and your wife, Judy Travis. And so first off, congratulations on baby number 4. just this year as well. So
Thank
I
you.
know that I've got 3, you've got 4. I can only imagine, and 4 girls. Is that correct?
Yeah, keeping me busy.
Keeping you busy for sure. So give us a little, or give everybody a little bit of background about you, how you got here, how it all kind of started. What does that look like, and what kind of brings us to today?
Yeah, so it all started in 2008. My wife, Judy Travis, who's really the superstar of my world, both in my personal life, but also in my business or in my profession. She started in 2008 creating videos for other ladies all over the world through YouTube, teaching beauty techniques, whether it's makeup or hair looks. And I remember looking over her shoulder and really giving her crap about doing this. Like, I literally said she was wasting her time. I was her first official hater, even though I wasn't trying to do anything intentionally destructive, not realizing that this was something that she took very seriously. And I guess she gets the last laugh because a decade later, she is my boss. And we've built this amazing business, not only around her, but also this platform. So, long story short, we eventually got married. We started a family vlogging channel, just hit 1 billion video views this year. And that's, been 10 years of uploading basically daily. At one point we were doing 7 days a week, I'd say, like, for 4 or 5 years. Then we tapered that down to 5 days, but that's 5 videos a week. And that's just that one channel. I've got a food channel. She still has her beauty and mom channel. But my latest and greatest project is video influencers. I feel it's important to share what I know and what I've learned, because so many people help me along the way, not just in YouTube, but in my life. So video influencers is a channel where I help other creators not just start YouTube channels, but build a business around this, whether it's building your influence, making money. And Sean Cano is a good friend of mine that that helped with Dan Sember. We also wrote a book together called YouTube Secrets. So I'm holding it up, plug
Yep.
in the book here. But that is basically 10 years of our life put into a book format, bestseller on Amazon. And that's my life. I love helping people crush it on this platform, but more importantly, really just realize the opportunity that is in front of us, even in 2020, in social media and on the digital mediums that we all use every single day. It is not too late. I do believe that the best is yet to come, and this year even more so. And we'll get into all of that, but that's my life in a nutshell.
I love it. No, I appreciate that. And, so 12 years you've been, hustling on these platforms, and you guys, between you and Judy, have built a lot of channels, a lot of opportunity. And I think that you've done tremendous for the opportunity that you have in front of you. Right. So,
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, and that's why I was excited to work with you 4 years ago. Excited to continue to still collaborate with you and talk about different things. So, you let's talk a little bit about video influencers. So, and you kind of touched about it a little bit, but so through this experience, the last 10, 12 years, is that what really kind of pushed you and motivated you to build this channel to help others get to, the success that you're looking for, or what you've achieved?
Absolutely. Every single year that I've been on YouTube with my wife, and even though in the beginning I was questioning it, quickly I realized this was a lucrative thing for her. And then a couple of years later, for us as a couple, I thought, like, this is an opportunity for us to do what we love, because I also started my food channel. I always wanted to be on the Food Network. And year after year, I remember just always my mind being blown with not only the opportunity, but the growth and the possibilities and the opportunity. When I first started in 2008, supporting Judy in 2009, I used to say, hey, we got to milk this for all it's worth, because it might be done in 12 months. I don't know anything about this world. And, I come from a background of real estate. All this social media stuff was really very new to me. I mean, I used to question her on what I now do full time. So as the years went on, I'd say like 2013, 14, I really felt that this was going to be a long-term thing. I feel like I was definitely very right about it, because even in 2020, I actually feel more so that YouTube could be around for another decade. And so in the midst of that, meeting my good friend Sean Cannell in the same area of the North Seattle place that we live, we thought, you know what, we should write this book together, hence YouTube Secrets. But we thought, hey, you know, in order to get in connection with the people that be interested in the book, let's start a YouTube channel. And we knew that you can't just start a YouTube channel and people are going to come to you. Like, you have to give something of value. And the value we were going to give was, we're going to help them start their YouTube channels, build a business. And our, you know, our catchphrase is help you build your influence, income, and impact with online video. And we thought, hey, if we do this in tandem with writing this book, when we release the book, we'll have the readers that would actually be interested in it. So we thought it was going to take 6 months. It ended up taking us 4 years. But what happened was, in the 4 years, we got to 500,000 subscribers. And now it's really become a show like this, interviewing other successful YouTubers, entrepreneurs who are influencers, not just in YouTube, but on social media. And we continue to help people every single week. You know, Sean respectively has his own platform where he also helps creators. I'm a vlogger. And I think that's what's interesting about video influencers. It's a perspective of not just both of us, but all the guests that come on. So it's really powerful. And I never thought that it would go this long, but it's something I take very seriously, because I do believe that there's more opportunity for people to have, and we just have to spread the message about that.
That's great. That's really awesome. So one of the things that you just mentioned is, or I guess what I was thinking of when we were just talking about that is, I think one of the biggest like misconceptions or is misunderstood is the amount of work that it takes to put together content daily. Like, you know, I follow you on Instagram, and just the amount of steps, you know, when you teach someone the food, for example, on the dinner that you're making, it's literally the dinner that you're making for your family, but you're developing all these steps and stopping and creating content, and you can't just turn the food off while you're doing it. So I mean, it's hustling, and you know, and then on your wife's side and everything. So that is a big, I guess, misunderstood part of creating content, is that it's easy, or it takes 2 minutes. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, to have it be your career, have it be your business, that's what it takes. It takes hustle, it takes work, and you got to do it daily.
Yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging all that. I mean, you more so than most people, because you've been in our home, which is rare, because I don't live in like a very popular area of Seattle. I mean, you've been over, you've seen us actually creating content. You saw me creating content as I'm coming on to your show,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm vlogging right here. And so one thing I would definitely disclose, I've been doing it for a long time. So we figured out not necessarily the hacks, but, you know, optimized way of creating content. And for me, I'm just trying to squeeze every little of potential video out of my life. So not only do we have a vlogging channel, I've got my show on Video Influencers. Saturday mornings, I'm interviewing people or going live. I've also got my cooking channel. So basically, I'm like, hey, if I'm going to cook, I might as well film this, right? And so I try to put out at least a video a week. I usually don't always get to that, but like once every 2 weeks at least. And then my wife also has her own thing. So we just created a lifestyle around creating content. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. In the beginning, it was more work than it is now. And so I give so much credit to not only my experience and the lessons I've learned from people like Judy or my friend Sean Cano and so many other experts on YouTube, but also my team. I mean, one of the reasons we're able to create so much content, because we have this support around us to be able to do that. You've seen like Dan Sember, like we don't ever take credit for that. We always give DAP to the team, including yourself, who was partnering with us a couple of years. And it's the people that team up with us that give us ability to do it. But absolutely, for anybody listening to this, it does take work, especially in the beginning. If you've got a job, you've got a career, you're running your own business, maybe you've got a family to take care of, you've got so many other, you know, things you're juggling. And the one advice I'd always give to people is just isolate some time to really focus on it. And I know this might sound elementary, but Adam, it's so crazy what turning off the phone will do for you for an hour, right?
For sure.
And if you just turn off the phone for an hour, you can create one piece of content, whether it's a photo or a small little video or some stories on Instagram. And that's what I've learned to do in my personal life, is just really dedicate that time. And I don't let anything distract me. And the reason I bring that up is, once you get into it, it's not as hard as you think. but it just takes a while to learn those habits to be able to create that content. And I think the biggest challenge people have isn't even the time or the effort, it's just the fear people have on of
Right.
putting yourself out there.
Yeah, that definitely is a big part of it. So I do want to, you touched on the team, and I do want to talk about that and your leadership style and so forth. But one of the questions I want to ask you, you've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of brands on different channels and different formats. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what that's like? You know, what are those? What are the expectations? Do you have full creative freedom? Kind of how do these situations kind of evolve?
Yeah, the way I describe it, it's more of a collaboration than it is we're just doing a sponsorship. We definitely lean on the side that we want as much control as possible. But part of the reason they want to work with us is because they have a product or service they want to promote, and they do have ideas or inspiration they want to share with us on
Yeah.
how it could be presented. So it's very much a matter of compromising, not in a bad way, but in a good way. So that's why I use collaboration. And if your viewers aren't familiar, as YouTubers, one of the most lucrative ways to make money is if you've got an audience and you get a lot of views and impressions, whether it's like a lot of views because of a vlog audience like ours, or like the right views for a niche audience around some like specific type of profession. You can work with so many brands and business out there, because the one thing we have in addition to the influence is the fact that we can create content. Like I mentioned, we create content 5 days a week. For most businesses, it costly hundreds if not thousands, probably better than most, that
Yep.
it's quite expensive if you don't know how to do it and you want to hire professionals. And so because of that, they come to us. And the sneak peek is, I mean, it's a matter of, number one, making sure the product or brand aligns with us. And if we agree, then we get into obviously negotiating, making sure all the terms are right, because we want it to be a win-win. Number one, win for the audience; two, win for us, and win for the brand. So all the way around, it's not just like one-sided. And once we figure that out, then it's just creating content. And we try to make sure it's organic to what our viewers experience or consume, or what they expect. That's probably the most important, because if it's so off and they don't watch it, then there's no point in doing it for the brand, right? And we don't work in a way where, like, just because we get paid, it's all good what happens to views. Like, we want it to be strong content. In fact, we want it to be as strong, if not stronger. We look at brand collaborations as a way to create better content than we would on our own. Obviously, there's that expense aspect, right? Because we can invest some of those funds into special projects or trips or whatever it is. But always, it's got to make sense, or dollars, obviously. And then what we do is we just have learned a lot over time. Like I said, a decade of doing this. And what's interesting, sometimes there's influencers out there that's like hype up they've worked with thousands of brands. We might have worked with over 1,000 up to this point, but I'd rather work with the right brands and do bigger projects than work with a lot of brands and have like low quality content. So I've never really counted, but I when I hear people's like, yeah, we work with hundreds of brands a year, I'm like, where do you get the time for that? So that is the one thing that differentiates my wife and I. We're premium influencers in that sense, and we'll say no to way more deals than we say yes. In fact, like I could honestly say like 3 to 5% of the opportunities that come our way, we agree to even just look at it. And then it's another thing if we actually do it. So that's, a quick cliff notes of working with brands and our philosophy, and what's helped us to sustain not only our lifestyle, but our business, and then even invest in things like Dance Ember.
Well, I can attest to all of that too, because over the years that I've interacted, behind the scenes, if you will, it's been the conversation always been, does it align? Does it make sense? Does it fit? Does it? And you guys have been so and on the other side, consuming your content and in knowing that it might be a deal or whatever, but it just feels so natural, which I know you guys
Yeah.
aim to work on that and everything. So that's great. Thanks for that insight. So you talked about a little bit about your team.
Yep.
And I think the December team is different than your day-to-day team. One of the questions that I have, for you is how do you keep your team motivated? I assume you must have a remote team as well throughout different
Yep.
cities. how do you keep the collaboration up? What is your kind of secret sauce when it comes to that element as well?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of basic in this sense, but there's definitely kind of a flair of I'd say personality in my leadership. See, the way I look at it is like I know what I'm good at, and Judy knows what she's good at. And if there's something that needs to get done, but there's other people that are specialized in it, we want to work with those people. So when it comes to my team, we're just hiring the people that are already good at something, or hopefully better than us. And because of that, it just creates a very natural fit in terms of who's on our team. And I didn't start off with this. I want to say, like, depending on what you would consider team members, anywhere from like 6 to 8 people on a regular basis working with us. But I started with my first hire, and she still works with us today, and her name is Stacy. She's our in-house brand manager, so a lot of the administrative stuff initially she kind of took over, but then has really kind of like completely owned the fact that she manages all the brand communication and whatnot. And so for me, I'm looking for people that are excited about doing whatever it is. So that's number one. Secondly, my philosophy on leadership is always do as much, if not more, than any one of your team members. And if you do find one of those team members that works harder than you, well, good luck trying to keep them for very long, or you better get ready to pay them. So one thing is, I'm very fair and I'm very realistic about people's ambitions and what I can provide. And I don't hide any of that. I'm like really transparent. I'm not trying to keep you. In fact, I tell people, when you come to work with me or my wife and I expect that one day you're going to leave. So what is it that you want to do after you're employed with us? And that's not like something I came up with. In fact, there's a restaurant in Seattle, you may know, Canlis Restaurant.
Oh yeah.
And the brothers that own it, this is their philosophy. And in the restaurant industry, it's even more kind of a revolving door. So they always ask that when they interview people, and kind of like throws people back. But I'm like, for real, like, what do you want to do with your life after this job? And because of that, they know that I don't have these crazy, unrealistic expectations of them that one day they may leave. But I've been able to retain employees because of that. Because what they find too is I only let you kind of manage things that you really believe in or are passionate about. So rarely are people on my team that are doing things they don't like, because I don't find that you get optimal return on investment from people doing things they hate. So that's definitely helped me. And that's another thing too. My wife and I, we literally take no breaks. So I feel like that whole philosophy of make sure we work as hard, if not harder than the employees, really helps to lead the way. In fact, one of my friends, he owns another restaurant, and he's always behind the counter of the restaurant, even though he doesn't have to. And that was one of the things that really impressed my wife. She said, I really respect that. I think leadership is about being present, and being somebody's boss isn't just about telling them to do something. It's about showing them you're doing something yourself. So that's kind of my leadership style in a nutshell. But also, it's just fun. Like, this business is a fun business for me, and we try to let people have flexibility. And so yes, we do have some remote employees. Even now, I've got some in-house like in the area, but they work remotely as well. So flexibility is really important. I feel like we were getting ready for this year. So that's helped people to basically pursue other things while still working with us, because they don't have to show up to a 9 to 5 at a brick and mortar. Nothing wrong with that, but that's just our style. Maybe that lends itself to the fact that we are digital influencers, so we already think that way.
For sure. Side note, did you see how creative Canlis has been throughout COVID?
Yeah. In fact, they called me the other day to offer me a dinner at one of their like yurt like setup or whatever. So I've definitely paid attention. I haven't been able to get out there. It was just such last notice. But I think and this is one reason I give them so much credit for what I've learned from them, even though I don't own a restaurant. They are truly some amazing entrepreneurs, and the restaurant industry probably got hurt more than any other single specific industry other than maybe the airlines.
Yeah.
And as you know, fine dining too, that's like not an easy place to be when people are starting to like watch what they spend money on. So I have seen their creativity, and I hope that they can continue to survive this to get to thriving one day. And I'm looking forward to eating there. Maybe you and I will go there one day together.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, I saw their yurt village. They launched a university. I
I
mean, they're
try to
doing.
get their Thanksgiving dinner thing. I love cooking Thanksgiving dinner. We're like,
Yep.
hey, if they're offering that, it must be good. I saw it available and I told Judy about it. And literally, she's like, did you order it yet? I was like, no, I was going to do it in the morning. So like, and she goes
And
and
it
look,
was gone.
sold out.
Yeah.
All sold out. So like Canlis, if you're in the area, and hopefully when things get back to normal, it's definitely a place you want to go, because you will see what somebody that is working really hard can create. And that restaurant's like the epitome of an amazing dining experience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I didn't really know who those brothers were prior to COVID, because another guy I know, Cal McAllister, he was helping them with some PR stuff, and they did some videos and I mean, I knew of the restaurant, but I didn't really follow them prior to COVID. So, but that's great. Yeah, let's go to the Your Village, check it out, because I'm feeling it's going to be popped up here for the next 6 months at least.
Oh, they should. They should just keep it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Although they got tough parking, right? So let's go back to video influencers in the future, because you know, kind of before we started, you mentioned, you know, kind of you've been working all the way up till now, and you know, so what's the future of video influencers? What's the next couple of years look like for you personally, and you know, kind of what your hustle is going to be working on?
Well, the future of video influencers reflects the future of this space. I started this channel with Sean so that we could connect with the people that are interested in doing what we do, or already doing it, just want to level up. And hence why I think not only YouTube Secrets did well with our audience, but also on Amazon, because people are still searching like how to build a YouTube channel, how to start, how to get more views. And I think that 2020 has just increased that desire. I mean, the amount of views that YouTube got this year was massive. It was unlike any other year in terms of growth. More people staying at home, more people on their phones or any kind of device, more people wanting content. As Hollywood struggles, as you know, movies and shows aren't able to create like YouTubers, people that are creating content, whether it's for entertainment or education, are just cleaning house right now. And as people like really are desperate for something to entertain them, to just take their attention away from the reality of what we're all living through, there's literally years and years of you know, content that's needed. So I have been doubling down this year and transitioning from what I've done with my wife for the last decade to what I think will be the next decade. And I do believe, in fact, my next book is going to be about influencers. It's going to be about this opportunity to keep talking about this evolution and basically revolution that's happening. It sounds so grand, but it really is happening right in front of our eyes. Little story I want to share with everyone, and I think you'll probably either know about it or like you'll understand the significance. There are these brothers called the Logan brothers. Okay, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of them, but I have respect for what they do because they're well known. They're one of the most influential YouTubers out there. They started on Vine, they got onto other platforms, and they really killed it on YouTube. We're part of some scandalous stuff. Like one of the brothers showed a dead body in a suicide forest in Japan. You would think that's like the end of his like public facing life, but no, like he just blasted right through that. And I'm not saying that's what you should do. In fact, that's why I'm not a huge fan of him. But now he's literally getting a fight with Floyd Mayweather, right? And
Yep.
his brother just got done with a huge fight, a big pay-per-view. I think they said like it was like hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And the reason I share that story is two brothers who are probably looked at as kind of the I don't know, inappropriate content creators at YouTube. You know, they support all their community, but would prefer not to be, you know, like related to them, still are getting these crazy deals and they're growing their influence. I mean, like Mayweather is going to put, even if Logan Paul gets knocked out, he's going to be known by that many more people. He's going to have even more opportunities and more growth, and same with his brother. And I don't like to use them as an example, but if people like that, who generally were kind of hated to a certain degree and judged and basically uh, thought that was the end of their career, can come back and do that, what's that saying about somebody that actually has good intentions, that wants to help somebody, right? Put out family friendly content, wholesome videos, because there's a world beyond what we see on the newspapers. And in our book YouTube Secrets, we feature a lot of these stories, the unknowns. You know, like, how would you, I mean, the way I met you is a great example, right? You were working at this other company and I wanted to promote Dan Sember. I was looking for some local partners and like, who are these guys, right? And you're sitting there at the table with me. And I remember like not only being at the table and looking at you and like, I'm like 50-50. I was like, I don't know if this guy like understands what I do or whatever. And even people after that meeting were like, yeah, you just got to wait. Adam like takes some time to like processing. They weren't saying a bad thing. They were just saying like, you're not like this overly excited guy like right up front, right? Like, I mean, you were like a top dog at that meeting. I remember everybody's like really talking you up, and you're the one that called me afterwards like, hey bro, the reason I didn't really say anything is because, you know, some things are going on, you were kind of moving on and you want to start some other things, but you straight up like, I totally get what you're doing. And that, what was that year? 2015, 16, right?
Yeah,
17.
2000. No, I think it was 2016 because that's when I started Madak, and you know, because it was literally the meeting. I definitely remember it. I mean, I was 10 days, 2 weeks away from leaving the company, so it was like I was listening to everything, but I was like, yeah, but I don't. The conversation isn't for the whole room. The conversation is I want to talk to Benji, and you know, everything you're just talking about from that Logan story to that, and what I saw was it all comes down to attention. It all comes down to people wanting the eyeballs. That's what brands want. That's what people
Their
want.
behavior
Yeah.
at home right now. And the reason I tell those weird off stories, like what does that have to do? That is every single day of my life. That's every week, every single month, no matter what city I'm in. People, when they hear me talk about this stuff, they are very interested. And I'm not the smartest guy out here doing this. I just have a huge passion. I love to work really hard and I just don't quit. And I just work with people like yourself or Sean Cannell and my wife that are way smarter than me, way more talented. And I just keep going at it. And so, you know, I see all these stories all the time, and it's interesting. If you don't understand the significance of YouTube, you're clearly going to understand as like some of these superstars get onto, you know, like traditional media. If you already are in it, you probably have tried to start it or dabbled in it. And if you're definitely in it as a YouTuber or a legit influencer, like on another platform, you understand that the stuff that's happening digitally is like nothing that could happen at like a mom pop brick and mortar store. Unfortunately, like I love supporting our local shops and businesses, and I try to go out of my way to go to those places to buy things. Like it like bothers me, people get everything from Amazon and like a little tube of glue comes in this like gigantic box, right? Like, so like I'm very practical, but the reality is people love convenience. So I was talking about behavior, right? And two, where's the attention? It's on their phones. And so as that happens, people are going to look for more like specific skilled people online to learn from. They're going to look for entertainers that can relate to them. One of the reasons I believe Judy's so successful isn't because she like even had an ambition to be a superstar. She was just willing to put herself out there, and anybody that was a mother or aspiring mother or is married, you know, she's Filipina. So like if you're Asian American, you have that going for you, or you're into beauty, you could relate. Like you had a specific person that you could watch and you could connect with and feel like they're your friend. Of course, it's very one-sided. You know, we like appreciate everybody's attention and watching us and that they're fans, and we call them viewers. But the reality is they watch Judy because they like her, they trust her. And that's for any person out there. I'm sure there's somebody online when it comes to like an entrepreneur. I mean, you've talked about Gary Vaynerchuk to me, right? Like he's somebody that you learn from. And so like imagine like there's going to be more Gary Vaynerchuks in the next decade, and I'm trying to reach those people. I'm trying to like really bring them up and feature them on Video Influencer. First off, secondly, I'm just trying to maximize their potential, just like I feel like I have helped Judy do. I don't take any credit for her stardom, but I definitely helped her realize that this was something that not only could be lucrative, but become full-time and build a business and brand around it. And I just want to duplicate that with as many people. So that is what I'm looking forward to doing the next 10 years. That's why I'm going to write this next book. This is why I'm going to coach and mentor people. And then 3, be on as many of these shows as possible to spread the good word about YouTube and social media.
Nice. I like it. And I think you have a unique perspective because you're in front of the camera and behind the camera, being the, you know, manager, if you will, for the enterprise that you and your wife have built. So you've got kind of both sides of the perspective, and you've got all angles of the brand deals to working with customers to being in situations where all the eyeballs are on Judy, and you're kind of doing the other things, but then other situations eyeballs are on you. So yeah, you've done amazing balancing all of these brands, if you will, or these how do you say, themes of you know, kind of the life.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really value, and I don't take it for granted. In fact, that's why I have a passion for what I do. And nothing against somebody that is teaching others or coaching or an expert, but I call myself a YouTuber first and YouTube expert second. It's because I do it that I know how to teach it. And I would never, and you know, labels or whatever, like your results, your actions, that's what's going to speak for itself. But for me, creating content and creating a lifestyle around that content is what's really important to me. And I always want to be doing that. I don't think I'll ever stop doing that. In fact, that's why I do video influencers. Rather than just being an expert and coaching other people, I want to be doing what I'm preaching inside of a format that aligns with my desire to help other people. So I appreciate that you mentioned that. And that there is definitely a million things. It's one of the challenges. Feel like, Benji, how do I introduce you? Because there's so many things. Like Dan Sember in itself could be a book, right? Because you saw how much work went into it, not just for me and my wife, but the whole team. Like there's probably a whole a career just sharing that with nonprofits. And I think that that's the last thing I would say in terms of you know, sharing about what's in the future for anyone, honestly, is you don't have to be one dimensional anymore. You know, like going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, I was thinking about him this morning, how he's not just this entrepreneur and has this big media business. I bought a case of wine because of an email he put out, right? He talks about the Jets. We just beat the Jets, which was awesome. That was a nice game for us, Seahawks, right? And we know he's into playing cards. Okay, I mean, this is a guy that you know, obviously makes a living off of being a businessman in advertising, but he's not afraid of those things. And that's what the internet allows you to do. I do believe if you're starting YouTube, whether it's a YouTube channel or whatever you're trying to do with it, you definitely want to niche down and be focused. But I don't think you have to always be that person. You kind of like share everything about you. And that's a difference. Like in a job, you are kind of one dimensional, most people, right? Like, and obviously as an entrepreneur, business owner like yourself, there's just so much that you have to do with lots of hats. I think that's what's natural for people. But in the beginning, definitely want to be focused and niched. But does that make sense about like why it's important for me to have different themes? Because you know, life is more than just this one thing that you're known for.
Well, and it's the things that you enjoy. So why not just do them? And you have the same premise across all of them, but you're doing different things, like from the cooking to, you know, Judy with the beauty and so forth. So no, that's great, man. And look, I've learned a lot from, you know, working with you and just being around kind of the work that you've been doing. And so, and I try to take a fraction of that. And I mean, shoot, I couldn't imagine trying to keep pace with the amount of content. That's why it's a full-time job. I mean, that's why, and you think about like my kids, your kids, you know, when we were growing up, I want to be in the NBA. It might be now you're literally hearing kids, I want to be a YouTuber. I mean, there is legitimate career paths with through social media.
Yes, a majority of kids want to do this. And I'm always wondering when that'll change from like YouTuber to TikToker or some other platform, right? And
Yeah.
that's another thing that's amazing about YouTube, that like it's held people's captivation, or their minds are there. Like that is the end all be all. Like even TikTokers aspire to be YouTubers. The biggest TikTokers have legit YouTube channels. And
Yeah.
I just know without even being in it, because I've been on so many different platforms. Still, when it comes to the biggest opportunities, I think that Instagram still holds a lot of ground in terms of brand sponsorships and potential for revenue or selling products. But there's something about YouTube. Maybe part of it has to do with the fact that it is more difficult. It's video and it's long format in some
Yeah.
cases, right? And 30-second piece of content don't work on there. It's like it has to be like 3 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. There's something about YouTube, and dare I say it, it's like the new TV, which is not necessarily good because TV died,
Yeah.
a decade ago. But I think for the next decade, that's what it will be. And that's so important, because when I first started this, Adam, people looked at YouTube the way people used to look at blogs. And I don't know if you're familiar with like
Yep.
blogs back in like 2000. It was kind of a weird thing. Like, oh, you're gonna have a blog, right? It's like something you just throw up random thoughts. And now there's legit bloggers who are just making sometimes millions of dollars. But YouTube was just like that in pre 2010, and over the last decade it's gotten a lot of clout, and companies are very comfortable with it, and that's what it has going for it. So it's still going to be relevant, and that's again why I feel so comfortable going into it. Now my next book won't be exclusive to YouTube because of the growth of this I'd say medium of social media and just apps in general. But I still think YouTube will be a huge player in the space unless America breaks them up.
Well, it's funny you say, well, first, YouTube really, I think, took a turn. I'm not sure when Google acquired them, but like, because now all of a sudden YouTube's its own search engine. How do I do this? How do I, I mean, I don't look instruction book. I just Google YouTube video.
I know, me either. I know.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? They say it's the second biggest search engine, only second to Google,
Right.
obviously, right? And that was what gave it so much leverage and still gives it leverage to this day. Even I talked to Gary Vaynerchuk about this, right? It was one of the questions I want to ask him. I was like, don't you think that YouTube has a lot more influence just because of it being a search engine? And Gary said, well, shoot, Facebook could turn on that button anytime they want. I was like, well, why don't they? Why wouldn't they? Well, it's because it's very difficult. And that, like, Google was already positioned. They bought it back
Yeah.
in 2005, I believe, or at
Yeah.
least that's when they really like built it. Oh, actually, I don't know when they actually bought it. I know that's when it started. So it might have been pretty quickly after that, 2006, 7. But I just know that search, and I don't know if we're nearing the end of the call or not, but in terms of YouTube and the potential, if you start with search in mind and the fact that people are looking for something very, very specific, you will start off better than 99% of people, because most people just assume what people want to see versus looking at search data, looking at what are the words and phrases people are putting into Google and YouTube, and then revolving your content around that. And I do believe it works for other platforms. It just works the best for YouTube.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, okay. I got a couple last questions to kind of wrap up, but before we leave the YouTube, you had mentioned kind of the new TV. When I go, want a little bit of a mental break or whatever, and kind of want to watch, lately, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Casey Neistat. I just think that his cinematography is just amazing, and just puts together. And he's also a pioneer of YouTube, and just puts together really cool, interesting videos, which is just mind-boggling because he's a one-man person, one-man show, and kind of does a lot himself. And just I could just see the behind the scenes of kind of how that would work. And then lately, Ryan Serhant and what he's doing with the real estate world, and how he has built using YouTube, and I think he's linked to VaynerMedia, and they're like a client or something. But he's really leveraged a lot of the practices that you're talking about to build the attention, build the buyers, so he can sell houses, you know, in the biggest market in the world. And he's grown, and now he just launched his own platform and so many different things. It's all this media and attention.
There's a million of those stories, Adam, like of
Yeah.
every profession, every industry, any kind of niche or genre. And, you know, they say there's 2 billion plus logged in users. Those are just people that have, you know, a sign in uh, on YouTube, and there's still another 5 billion people waiting, right, to
Yeah.
get internet. And that's what's so crazy. It's just the internet that's lacking in those places.
Sure.
What happens when another billion, that's like 50% more viewers for the platform, get on here? And I believe that it's interesting. I started a real estate channel back in 2011 to help my failing real estate business that I started when I first was talking smack about my wife starting YouTube, right? And I turned that around to less, it was doing less than 10 properties a year, which is basically poverty level, right? To over 100 properties annually. And it was because of a YouTube channel. So when I see these real estate people, what's crazy is Gary Vaynerchuk in his book in 2008, Crush It. He gives suggestions of like, these are the YouTube channels you need to start, right? I remember them. Home Shopping Network type of channel. He was saying a T channel. And another one was real estate. So like the real estate one, I was like, oh, dang, I should like start doing this thing. And I did. And so 10 years later, the real estate world has these superstars, but that's just like people in mega cities. In terms of like smaller rural areas or even like outside the downtown area, there is just so much left on the table for real estate agents alone. And that's just this one industry. So I love hearing those kind of stories. I'm kind of familiar with this channel. I think I see him pop up on my stuff. But going back to your point, I think this is where you were going with this. Because there's like such niche focuses on YouTube, you can be entertained by YouTube videos for easily an hour like you did on TV. Just like you could go to your exact channel, like cable channel, like whether it was like the Food Network or the History Channel. Now you can go even more niche, right? If you want to learn about real estate or like see real estate tours or deals and just hear other professionals, like that was never a thing on TV. It's just so crazy. And why wouldn't someone like that desire for very specific type of content is what makes not just YouTube, but all social media so powerful. And this is why I feel like in my next book, that's one of the things I want to unveil is don't think that your ideas have to be limited. Like you can reach like a small tribe of people and make a full-time living from it way easier now than ever before, just because of the algorithm, which is a whole nother discussion. We don't have to get into it. But again, the algorithm's job is to get the right person to the right piece of content. So if you're into buttons, right, you collect buttons, trust me, there's probably a million people on this planet that also love buttons. Benjamin Button is one of my favorite movies, and that guy had like a button factory. Man, I bet you that right now somebody that's into buttons could start a button factory and kill it if they put out content around those buttons and made their search queries or their titles around those search queries of button lovers.
Love it. So
I remember talking, we used to do this for like 2 or 3 hours and just like float by, you know?
Oh, I know, man. It's incredible. I appreciate you giving us a little bit of sneak peek of what's to come, what has been, and you're so right. I mean, like, you know, me, for example, me starting this podcast, it's just a tiny little thing, but it's just another piece of content to get it out there and create awareness and really open yourself up. Because you know, in the last podcast I was talking to somebody, like, people want to do business with, in my case, like, you know, working with clients, they want to work with business or with people. And so getting, you know, allowing myself to put myself out there and showing them a little bit more about me, and so it's not just hidden behind emails and proposals and stuff like that. It's the real deal.
For sure.
So last two questions. One question: what's the advice you want to give yourself 10 years from now?
So me today, here in 2020, December, I'm going to give the person I become advice 10 years from now.
Yeah. What are you going to tell
Um,
yourself 10 years from now?
I'm gonna tell them, remember why you started and keep going. It's so
Nice.
simple.
Yeah. Just keep
Yeah.
pushing.
I think that the one thing, it's interesting because I go opposite. Okay. What I do is I think about myself in 10 years and what would that guy tell me today, right? Like if he
Yeah.
came back in time, like what would he want to tell me? Like what are the regrets I may have that I don't want to like actually have? So like what would that person tell me? Like knowing who I am right now, compared to like what I could grow into. And so I go that. So when I go back, it's just interesting because then now I'm thinking 10 years back from now, right?
Yep.
Is that's 2010. And if I would probably want to hear that same thing, like remember why you started, and secondly, keep going. Because that's probably one of the number one things I want to leave with this audience when it comes to YouTube and obviously social media. You just can't quit. It takes, like you said, it takes a lot of work. It's effort to create content if you're already busy. And this is why brands pay so much money, but this is why it's so valuable. This is why it's worth it to be an influencer in your space, in your world, whatever that might be, small or big. And, so many people quit when they're like on the 20-yard line, not realizing like to get from the first yard line to 20-yard line is pretty hard. But then to get to the 50-yard, it's still like about the same distance, but it's a little bit easier. And then getting all the way to the 99, well, it's not 99, it's like 1 yard line of the opposing team. And sometimes you're like so close to the end zone, you just do not realize it, right? You just don't know, and you just got to keep going. And that's just the way social media is. Like things change, you've got to change as well. Things kind of expire, platforms come and go. This is again why I'm not like obviously a super fan, or I maybe am, but I talk about YouTube so much. But you just have to know that we're in such a new world that these guidebooks, even my book, is like 10% irrelevant because things have already changed since when we put
Yeah.
it out in 2018. And so part of being able to evolve with that and adjust is just like keep moving forward and learning new things. This is what's so mind-blowing about people like Gary Vaynerchuk or other influencers I know. Even as that platform they became big on kind of goes to the wayside, they keep being relevant because they just don't quit, right? They just adopt a new app or get onto the newest platform. They create content. And this is why it all boils down to influence. That's why that's the most important thing. And remember, every step of the way, if you're starting in a niche, but then you're growing into like this human that people respect and appreciate and eventually follow, that influence will never, ever go away. I know that no matter what happens, no matter if YouTube gets deleted, that as long as I can get connected, and whether that's through my email list, through like other social media platforms, that influence. But to get to that influence, it takes a lot of work. So that's my long answer to my short answer, which is this is why I would tell them to keep going.
I like it. And I know you'll agree with this, but also enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy
For sure.
the process of getting to wherever you're going to go. Cause you're going to spend most of your time doing that anyways. So have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 has been really difficult for so many people. My heart goes out to them. Like, we're praying for families that either have someone that passed away or is sick. But I just think about like the doctors and nurses and the entrepreneurs who are losing their businesses, and the world is just hurting. Like, this is a unique time. Like, not even in a world war did we ever have a time where almost every single country except New Zealand, right? Like, they even had their challenges, right? Have all unified in the sense that we're all hurting. And the reason I bring this up is even in the midst of that, like there is this opportunity to serve the world and find new solutions to these new problems. And I think that the thing that kept me going this year, and we've experienced our own personal challenges as well as professional problems or hurdles we had to get over, is that mindset of like enjoy the journey, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy the tension or the stress. And of course, it's not like it's something I'd push somebody into like a lifelong of a whole life of stress. But the point is this: sometimes we need to go through the stress to become stronger. And on the other end, if you have the right mindset, and this is why I say keep going, everything all kind of comes full circle, because
Yep.
once you do get to the finish line or the end zone, like I was saying, man, that feels good. I just ran 10 miles and like it wasn't fun, like some of those miles, and it was raining here. We both live in the Seattle area. But man, when I got in, I finished those 10 miles. I could text Sean and say, hey, ran 10 miles, buddy. How you doing? Right? Like,
Yep.
that's such a great feeling, but you got to run all the way to the end. And it's so important not to quit, whatever you start.
Love it. I love the full circle too. So then give us one last question is, what do you think the title of your memoir is going to be one day?
Oh, yeah. You know what? This is the only question I didn't actually think of an answer to because I saw some of these questions. Balance. If there was literally a word that would be the title of my book, well, my memoirs, it would be balance. And I do believe, like I talk about hustle, you even acknowledge the fact that we had to work so hard to get, like, there is another side of it too. I'm thinking about my next video. Burnout is a real thing that happens in YouTube. And honestly, as probably, you know, as somebody that's been working his ass off for so many years, it happens in any industry, in any
Yeah.
profession, right? Like, it's not just unique to YouTube. It's just YouTubers kind of gave it a theme or a name because they put out these grand videos about like how they got burnt out. Okay.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is my wife and I, one of the biggest blessings, we never got burnt out to the point where we would put out a video that we are burnt out, right? And part of that is that balance. And I've always, you know, always made time for my family. I think date nights with my wife is important. I hang out with the girls, even pre 2020 and pandemic. So that balance is what helped me to sustain this momentum that I've built over the course of so many years, and obviously a decade or plus. And if you don't have that balance to know like when to push and when to kind of like lean back and just kind of like you said, like enjoy the process or the journey, then you know, worse things can happen than burnout. And you could go into health, you can go into finances. So balance is a key. Literally every part of my life is balance, or I try to strive for that more than any one thing outside of my faith, outside of my love for Judy, parenting my kids, is literally just having a balance. And I love to eat. And so like the biggest takeaway in terms of that word balance and what people can kind of like understand or maybe wrap their brain around is I'm going to eat something delicious tonight, probably like Japanese curry. But if my wife does a deep dish pizza, I'll probably eat a ton of that. But I don't do that every single day. And when I do that too much and I'm not running enough, I literally get on the scale and see that like number hike up a little. Like, okay, I need to maybe not eat as many frozen pizzas. I'm going to have to add a salad here. That's the balance I'm talking about. And that balance, if you apply that to all parts of your life, I think generally, not necessarily more happy, but you'll be more at peace, which funny enough, like keeps you steady. You know, like when you're selling a boat, you want that boat to be as straight and as forward as possible. Obviously the winds will change, the waters might be breaking a little bit more, but you just want to be cutting right through that. And there's times where you go fast, sometimes where you're still, but generally you don't want to capsize, right? And that's what balance will help you do. It'll just keep you sailing for as long as possible, as peacefully, and help you get to the finish line. So
Love it. I like that answer, and I appreciate you giving us that deep dive. And I'm glad we caught you right after that 10 mile, because you still got those endorphins ready to go.
yeah, I should do this more often. In fact, I used to do it when I first started my show. I would run before my Saturday morning shows. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was great to catch up with you. We got to do this more often.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you taking the time, giving us a little sneak peek, and I look forward to seeing video influencers and everything else that you're doing in 2021. So thanks again, Benji, and we will definitely catch up soon.